Hello, all. Thanks so much for joining us today. I'm Zbigniew Grabowski, also known as Dr. Z. I really appreciated our earlier presentations. Gratitude for all the women in this audience and for our Mother Earth. I'm also expressing gratitude for my partner Gretchen here, who helped put this presentation together, and our whole bioregional organizing team for their input, as well as my mom, who I sent off to hip replacement surgery very early this morning. So any foibles in this, you can blame on a lack of sleep and not the preparedness of my team. So next slide, please. Where we are, just got a little preview to this in the last presentation, but we are in the Northeast, so-called New England. We consider this an ecologically and culturally cohesive zone of the Algonquin-speaking peoples, often referred to as the land and the peoples of the first light. Next slide, please. And this is an abundant region. This abundance was co-stewarded and co-created over millennia since time immemorial. This is literally the landscape that was co-created through traditional ecological knowledge and indigenous wisdom, and has resulted in a bounty of species which continue to be utilized in many different cultural traditions of both settlers and indigenous nations to this day. Next slide, please. We have many challenges, however, and these are, in my mind and in the minds of our colleagues, very inseparable from the foundational traumas of the so-called founding of the Americas. The Mystic Massacre, represented in this somewhat famous image next to another iconic image of New England, the collapsing barn, indicates, that not only are we quite a post-colonial society, neither a post-agrarian society or a post-industrial society, but a bizarre amalgamation of all of these things that results in our systemic interdependence with global systems of extraction and expropriation. So if we want to solve these global challenges locally, we have to recognize that kind of microcosm, macrocosm relationship between the two. But we are not a region without proposed solutions or significant intellectual and financial capital set to bear on these different challenges. However, none of the proposed solutions on the table right now have any sort of indigenous leadership structure, as has been shared by other presentations today, nor is it truly systemic in nature, or does it really seek to find that right relationship with our more than human kin by reinscribing the rights of nature. So next slide, please. In face of these challenges, a diverse group of us, some of whom you've heard from in various forms throughout this cultivator, has come together, realizing that what our main need in this region, working across our disparate subgeographies and subvalleys and subwatersheds, is really coming together across the tribal and non-tribal realm, but also the diverse organizations working on those different aspects of regeneration within our sphere. Next slide, please. This has resulted in a preliminary regional scale vision and strategy. This is very much under development, but we think of this as the kind of fruits of our tree that we are building together, rooting in indigenous co-governance mechanisms. By focusing on the interdependence of ecological restoration programs with regenerative food, fiber, and fuel systems, which in turn can support healthy, affordable, high-performance buildings, clean energy systems, and clean active transit and transportation networks, including trails, multi-use paths, we can really revitalize the traditional patterns of villages and urban areas across our region in symbiosis with larger scale ecological and land regeneration. To do so, as has been proposed by this BioFi initiative, we seek to create this bioregional financing facility in the form of a trust to flow funding to the various initiatives, as well as a venture studio that provides project financing to stand up enterprises which can create a self-reinforcing economic system. As part of that, our organizing team is already poised to expand our existing programs of education and cultural change, collaborative design and planning, knowledge commoning, including various forms of mapping, data and analysis, as well as provide the legal architectures, reinscribe the rights of nature on our landscape, and work in concert to develop forms of decentralized payment, as well as the overall regenerative economic and financial architecture required for regeneration. Next slide, please. I'll take a quick breath here. Release all that tension. To do this, we've been working very diligently as a set of volunteers. We have also been raising capital independently as organizations quite successfully in many ways over the last year. And over this last 10 months as a bioregional organizing team, we've contributed over $250,000 in in-kind hours to creating this draft strategy and regenerative effort. To further this effort, we've all come across this obstacle, as I'm sure many organizations have encountered. We are resource limited in that current economic systems are not poised to regenerate themselves or this landscape, and therefore we need dedicated funding to move from beyond a volunteer-based effort into one that is actually somewhat formalized and take this emergent structure into one that can actually assemble and channel the flow funding into our regenerative strategy. We've also identified a huge financial need in our very short period of time across projects in the region, and we know that this is just the tip of the regenerative iceberg across our geography. Next slide, please. We, have been thinking hard about this. I come from an academic systems change background. We recognize that social, ecological, and infrastructural systems don't respond just to social pressures alone. They require the policy and financial reorganization, which has brought us into alliance with this BioFi initiative. But we envision broadly a system whereby an organizing team of the various organizations in our region can develop the strategy collaboratively with a regional intertribal alliance to start to flow funding into a trust, which supports mission-driven work, which creates the enabling conditions for regenerative for-profit businesses, which cannot reasonably be expected to operate profitably within the current market environment, given the tilted playing field that we're operating within, which can also be stood up by a bioregional venture studio, which also benefits from relationships with value-aligned investors. Ultimately, this ecosystem becomes self-sustaining as these for-profit entities can also support the larger systemic change work required in our region. Next slide, please. As one example of project rooted in place, this is the Alliance for the Mystic River Watershed, where I'm currently the executive director. Now, based on a combination of philanthropic grants and unrestricted donations, we've raised over $1 million to support the development of a watershed regeneration action plan. Through that work, we realized that many of the challenges that we face within our watershed cannot be addressed by solely watershed level projects. We require systemic change to make housing affordable, to have carbon drawdown technologies operate at scale. We are already seeking to reduce risk to over $400 million in climate exposed assets within our small, slightly over 30 square mile watershed. And again, we realize this is a problem of global magnitude, which brings us into larger regional coherence. We have well identified financial needs as a single organization, as many of you do, but we need to work together to solve these challenges. Next slide, please.
1 minute remaining, Dr. Z.
Oh, my clock is slightly off. So as one example, we're standing up a bioregional or bio-based processing facility to facilitate the innovation around bio-based and circular economic activity in our region. This has already benefited from substantial funding flows and stands up the tribal housing program. Next slide, please. And we also are working in concert with the international, a North Turtle Island alliance of people in the design build industry seeking to create mainstream biogenic building materials. And next slide. And I think, and to wrap this all up, basically we see these interconnected levels of effort as absolutely vital to the regeneration of our bioregion as well as our larger planet. And I think through this confederation of bioregions that has been brought together by this initiative, that's how ultimately we'll achieve this goal. And I'm grateful for the opportunity to share all this with you all today. So thanks much. We also have a in-person gathering coming up on the 18th at Foundation House to iterate our portfolio, and we'll also be participating in the convenings that Bill and our 3.0 have been putting together for the near-term future, and I look forward to seeing many of you there. So thank you again.